Imagine being locked inside a prison designed to make escape impossible. Steel doors, armed guards, concrete walls, watchtowers, and miles of dangerous terrain between you and freedom. Now imagine studying all of that and discovering one weakness nobody else noticed. Sometimes that weakness was a ventilation shaft, sometimes it was a delivery truck, and sometimes it was the fact that nobody expected a helicopter to land on the roof. From handmade tunnels to fake heads and wooden guns, these are 7 of the most unbelievable prison escapes in history. Number 7. John Dillinger's wooden gun escape. By 1934, John Dillinger was one of the most famous criminals in America. After being captured in Arizona, he was transported to the Lake County Jail in Crown Point, Indiana, where he waited to stand trial. Officials were confident that he was going nowhere. The jail was heavily guarded and publicly described as escape-proof. Dillinger apparently disagreed. On March 30, he confronted the guards with what appeared to be a pistol. He forced them to open his cell before moving through the jail and locking several guards and employees inside cells. Only after escaping did Dillinger claim that the weapon had been fake. According to his story, he had carved it from wood and darkened it until it resembled a real pistol. Historians still debate whether the gun was truly wooden or whether someone had smuggled a real weapon inside. Either way, the guards believed it. Before leaving, Dillinger collected actual firearms from the jail and stole the sheriff's car. He then made a major mistake. By driving the stolen vehicle across state lines into Illinois, Dillinger committed a federal crime, allowing the FBI to become directly involved in the manhunt. His freedom would not last forever. But for one embarrassing afternoon, one of America's most wanted criminals defeated an escape-proof jail using either a handmade wooden gun or an extremely convincing lie. Number 6. The Great Escape. During the Second World War, Stalag Luft 3 was a German prisoner of war camp built to hold captured Allied airmen. The camp had been designed specifically to stop tunneling. The prisoners' barracks were raised above the ground, allowing guards to see if anyone was digging underneath them. Microphones were buried around the camp to detect movement below the surface. Even the soil created a problem. Beneath the darker surface was bright yellow sand that would immediately stand out on a prisoner's clothing. But the prisoners planned something far larger than the guards expected. They began building 3 tunnels, secretly named Tom, Dick, and Harry. If one tunnel was discovered, work could continue on the others. The tunnels were dug roughly 30 feet underground. Prisoners reinforced them with thousands of pieces of wood taken from beds, furniture, and other parts of the barracks. Milk cans became ventilation equipment. Stolen electrical wire provided lighting. Small carts transported men and sand through the narrow passages. Hundreds of prisoners contributed by digging, creating maps, forging documents, sewing civilian clothing, and watching the guards. The yellow sand was hidden inside bags beneath their clothing and secretly released around the camp. On the night of March 24, 1944, prisoners entered the completed tunnel known as Harry. But the tunnel was too short. Instead of opening safely inside the nearby forest, it ended close to the guard towers. The escape continued anyway. 76 prisoners reached the surface before a guard discovered the tunnel. Most were recaptured. Only 3 eventually reached safety, and 50 of the recaptured airmen were executed on Hitler's orders. The escape did not achieve the freedom its planners imagined, but the engineering remains extraordinary. Inside one of the most heavily monitored camps in Europe, prisoners had secretly constructed an underground railway system using bed frames, cans, wires, and stolen pieces of wood. Number 5. Pascal Payet's helicopter escapes. Most prisoners search for a way through the walls. Pascal Payet decided to fly over them. In 2001, Payet was serving a lengthy sentence at Louin's prison in southern France. One day, a hijacked helicopter appeared above the facility, landed on the roof, collected Payet, and flew away. The entire prison had been defeated from the air, but this was not a one-time idea. While Payet was still free, he helped organize another helicopter operation at the same prison. In 2003, a helicopter flew to Louin's and rescued 3 other prisoners. Payet was eventually captured and returned to custody. Because of his escape record, authorities repeatedly transferred him between prisons. The idea was to prevent him from learning the routines and weaknesses of any single facility. It did not work. In July 2007, four masked men hijacked another helicopter near Cannes and forced the pilot to fly toward Grasse Prison. The aircraft landed on the roof during a shift change. The men used equipment to break through doors leading to the isolation wing where Payet was being held. The complete operation reportedly took about 5 minutes. The helicopter landed in an open area nearby, where Payet and his accomplices transferred into waiting vehicles. French authorities launched a major manhunt, and Payet was recaptured in Spain several weeks later. His escapes forced prisons to take attacks from above more seriously. A facility could inspect every vehicle, lock every entrance, and guard every wall. But none of that mattered if someone could simply arrive from the sky. Number 4. The Texas Seven. On December 13, 2000, 7 prisoners escaped from the John B. Connolly unit near Kennedy, Texas. Their plan required taking control of several areas inside the prison almost simultaneously. The men worked in a maintenance area, giving them access to tools, uniforms, and different sections of the facility. They overpowered civilian employees and correctional staff, restrained them, and stole their clothing, identification cards, and keys. Some members of the group dressed to resemble prison workers. They then reached an area containing vehicles and took control of a maintenance truck. Because they appeared to be employees completing an ordinary task, they were able to drive away before the full scale of the escape became clear. They also obtained firearms from the prison's armory. By the time authorities understood what had happened, all 7 men were gone. The escape triggered one of the largest manhunts in Texas history. While running, the group committed additional robberies. During one of them on Christmas Eve, police officer Aubrey Hawkins was killed. The case received national attention, and authorities offered a large reward. Investigators eventually traced the group to Colorado. 1 man died by suicide as officers closed in. The other 6 were captured and returned to Texas. Their freedom had lasted only several weeks, but their plan exposed a dangerous weakness. The escapees did not smash through the walls. They studied the prison's routines, copied the appearance of its employees, and made themselves look like they belonged there. Quick pause. If you're enjoying the video so far, leave a like and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel and lets me keep making entertaining videos about strange history, impossible events, and unbelievable true stories. Now, back to the escapes. Number 3. The Maze Prison Escape. In 1983, the Maze Prison in Northern Ireland was considered one of the most secure prisons in Europe. Its 8-shaped cell blocks were surrounded by fences, gates, armed military positions, and strict security procedures. Inside H Block 7, however, prisoners connected to the Provisional IRA spent months studying those procedures. They watched how guards moved, learned which doors opened at specific times, and noticed which vehicles entered the prison without being searched thoroughly. On September 25th, prisoners produced weapons that had been smuggled into the block. They overpowered the officers, took control of the central area, and removed uniforms from several guards. The prisoners then waited for a food delivery truck that regularly entered the block. When it arrived, they seized the vehicle and forced its driver to transport them toward the main gate. 38 prisoners were packed inside. The truck successfully passed through 2 guarded gates. But at the main entrance, the plan began to collapse. More staff members arrived than expected. A struggle began, the truck's path was blocked, and the prisoners were forced to continue on foot. Confusion spread because some escapees were wearing prison uniforms while some real officers were dressed in ordinary clothing. 10 prisoners were captured almost immediately. By the following day, 19 had been recaptured. Others reached safe houses, crossed borders, or remained free for much longer. The escape had serious consequences. Prison officer James Ferris died, and several others were injured. But the scale was still unbelievable. 38 prisoners escaped from one of Europe's most secure facilities using a delivery vehicle the prison itself had allowed through its gates. Number 2. Yoshie Shiratori, the man no prison could hold. Yoshie Shiratori became famous in Japan for escaping from prison 4 separate times. Some details surrounding his story may have become exaggerated over the years, but the 4 escapes were real. His first occurred at Aomori Prison in 1936. After studying the guards' routines, Shiratori reportedly used a piece of wire to manipulate the lock on his cell. He was captured and transferred to Akita prison, where stronger security was supposed to stop him. Instead, Shiratori climbed the walls of his cell and escaped through an opening above. After being captured again, he was sent to Abashiri prison in northern Japan. Abashiri was surrounded by freezing temperatures and remote wilderness. Guards placed Shiratori in heavy restraints and watched him carefully. According to the most famous version of the story, Shiratori repeatedly poured miso soup onto the metal restraints and inspection opening in his cell. The salt slowly weakened the metal. In 1944, he removed his restraints, squeezed through the narrow opening, and escaped into the freezing landscape. He was eventually captured again. This time, authorities placed him inside Sapporo prison under constant observation. His new cell was designed to prevent another escape through the ceiling or windows. Shiratori responded by going downward. Using a food bowl and other simple objects, he reportedly loosened the floor and created a tunnel beneath his cell. In 1947, he escaped for the fourth time. He was later returned to custody, but his sentence was eventually reduced, and he was released on parole in 1961. Every prison had prepared for his previous method, and every time, Shiratori chose a different direction. Through the lock, through the ceiling, through a tiny opening, and finally, through the floor. Number 1. The escape from Alcatraz. Alcatraz was an island fortress surrounded by the cold water and powerful currents of San Francisco Bay. Even if someone escaped the cell house, they would still need to cross more than a mile of open water without being seen. Prison officials believed this made a successful escape almost impossible. Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin spent months proving them wrong. Using sharpened spoons and homemade tools, they gradually widened the ventilation openings behind their cells. They disguised the damage using fake covers painted to resemble the walls. At night, they climbed through the openings and entered an unguarded utility corridor. Above the cell block, the men created a secret workshop. There, they constructed wooden paddles, life jackets, and an inflatable raft made from dozens of stolen raincoats. They sealed the material using heat from the prison's pipes. They also created realistic dummy heads using homemade materials, paint, and real hair collected from the prison barbershop. On the night of June 11, 1962, the men placed the fake heads inside their beds. To guards walking past the cells, it appeared that the prisoners were sleeping. Morris and the Anglin brothers entered the utility corridor, climbed onto the roof, crossed the prison grounds, and reached the shoreline. A fourth conspirator, Alan West, could not remove his cell opening in time and was left behind. The other three entered the bay using their homemade raft. Then they disappeared. The following morning, a guard touched one of the dummy heads. It rolled from the bed and struck the floor. Alcatraz immediately went into lockdown. Investigators recovered pieces of wood, rubber fragments, sealed letters, and a homemade life vest. But they found no confirmed bodies. The FBI investigated for 17 years and concluded that the men most likely failed to survive the water and powerful currents. However, no final proof was ever found. Years later, relatives reported unusual messages and possible signs that the Anglin brothers had survived. In 2013, authorities received a letter from someone claiming to be John Anglin. The writer said all three men survived, but forensic testing could not confirm the claim. The letter was never proven authentic, and that is what makes the Alcatraz escape different. The plan definitely worked inside the prison. The ventilation openings worked. The fake heads fooled the guards. The men reached the roof and made it to the water. The only unanswered question is whether they also reached freedom. These 7 escapes succeeded for completely different reasons. Dillinger used fear and confidence. The prisoners at Stalag Luft 3 built a hidden underground railway. Pascal Payet attacked prisons from the air. The maze prisoners used the prison's own delivery truck. Yoshie Shiratori changed his method whenever authorities changed his cell. And the Alcatraz escapees transformed spoons, hair, and raincoats into a mystery that remains unsolved. But escaping did not erase the crimes that placed these people inside prison. Many were quickly recaptured. Some committed serious violence while running. Others never made it home. The remarkable part is not who they were. It is the planning, patience, and unexpected weaknesses that allowed supposedly impossible systems to fail. Every prison on this list was built around the same promise. Nobody gets out. All it took was one person finding the weakness nobody had considered. Which escape did you find the most unbelievable? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe for more entertaining videos about strange history, bizarre science, psychology, mysteries, and unbelievable true stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.